In 1312, an African emperor made a decision that would become one of history's greatest mysteries. He ruled one of the richest empires on earth, gold flowing through his kingdom like water. Scholars from across Africa and the Islamic world studying in his cities, an army that had never known defeat. And then, he walked away from all of it. He ordered ships to be built. More ships than anyone in his empire had ever assembled for a single voyage. He filled them with provisions, gathered experienced sailors and navigators from across West Africa, and sailed into the Atlantic Ocean. Centuries before Columbus crossed the Atlantic, a ruler of the Mali Empire launched an expedition westward into the unknown. And over time, his story became known primarily through oral tradition and Arabic chronicles, rarely appearing in the global history books that shaped modern education. This is the story of Mansa Abu Bakr II. To understand what he gave up, you have to understand what the Mali Empire was in the early 14th century. While much of Europe was still emerging from famine and instability, Mali was experiencing a remarkable period of prosperity. Its capital, Niamey, was a thriving center of trade and culture. Markets stretched for miles. Merchants from Cairo, from North Africa, and from across the Sahara came to trade in Malian gold. And Mansa Abu Bakr II sat at the center of it all. He ruled during the era that would soon produce one of the most famous rulers in history, Mansa Musa, the emperor whose pilgrimage to Mecca would astonish the medieval world. But Abu Bakr had a different curiosity. Where Musa would travel east across the known world, Abu Bakr looked west, toward the vast Atlantic Ocean. The Mali Empire controlled the gold and salt trade of West Africa. Its scholars studied mathematics, astronomy, and law. Caravans carried knowledge and goods across thousands of miles of desert routes. They had wealth, they had knowledge, but there was one thing no one possessed: a map of what lay beyond the Atlantic. According to the 14th century Arab historian Al-Umari, one of the most respected chroniclers of his time, a remarkable story was recorded during Mansa Musa's famous pilgrimage to Cairo. Musa explained that his predecessor had become fascinated by the Atlantic Ocean. He wanted to know what lay beyond it. So he ordered an expedition. Ships were constructed along the rivers and coasts of West Africa, large wooden vessels designed for long journeys at sea. Supplies were gathered for months of travel. According to the account preserved by Al-Umari, the fleet was enormous. Sailors prepared provisions of grain, dried meat, and water stored in clay vessels. Navigators studied the stars and ocean winds. And in the early 14th century, the fleet sailed west from the West African coast. The emperor himself joined the expedition. He left his throne in the care of a regent and sailed into the unknown. What happened next remains one of the great mysteries of medieval history. The fleet never returned. Months passed, then years. No message came back across the ocean. Eventually, the ruler was presumed lost, and the throne of Mali passed to a new emperor, Mansa Musa. But the question of what happened to that expedition has never completely disappeared. Some historians believe the ships may simply have been lost to the vast Atlantic. Others wonder whether some vessels could have been carried by ocean currents westward toward the Americas. Modern oceanographic studies reveal something fascinating. Ships leaving the West African coast between November and March would encounter the Canary Current and North Equatorial Current. which flow directly toward the Caribbean and South America. The route wasn't just possible. Given the prevailing winds and currents, it was almost inevitable. But historians remain cautious. No clear archaeological evidence has yet proven that the fleet reached the Americas. For now, the fate of Abu Bakr's expedition remains an open question, one of history's great unsolved journeys. Yet even when written records are uncertain, stories can survive in other ways. Across West Africa, traditional storytellers have preserved memories of past rulers and great journeys for generations. In some of these oral traditions, Mansa Abu Bakr is remembered as a ruler who pursued the horizon. A man willing to abandon power and wealth in order to answer a question about the world. Whether his ships were lost at sea or traveled farther than anyone expected, his story became a symbol. A symbol of curiosity, of exploration, of the human desire to discover what lies beyond the edge of the map. Over the centuries that followed, the history of African civilizations was often misunderstood or overlooked in many parts of the world. European exploration stories focused on voyages from the 15th century onward. Figures like Columbus, Magellan, and Da Gama became central to the narrative. Earlier African histories, including the story of Abu Bakr's voyage, rarely appeared in textbooks. At the same time, many historical records across Africa were lost through centuries of conflict, political change, and colonial disruption. And so the story of an emperor who sailed west slowly faded from the global memory. Today, historians continue to study the records of medieval Africa with new tools and new perspectives. Ancient manuscripts are being rediscovered and translated. Archaeologists are exploring forgotten cities. And within those records, the story of Mansa Abu Bakr II still appears. A ruler who asked a simple question: what lies beyond the horizon? His story asks us a question: what would you risk to discover what lies beyond your horizon? Mansa Abu Bakr II, the emperor who sailed west. Now you know his name.